Hi, my name is Sawyer Matthews, and this is my presentation on injury prevention of femoral acetabular impingement, or FAI for short. This injury has become a pretty common issue for soccer players, which my client Hannah Fischbacher is. Femoral acetabular impingement, or FAI, is basically when extra bone growth, like little bone spurs, form around your hip joint. That growth causes the femur and the acetabulum, which is the socket part of your hip, to rub against each other in ways that are extremely painful over time. Over time, that constant friction can cause pain, stiffness, and even damage to the joint. My client is a soccer player, and this is very common of an injury for soccer players because it is usually caused from overuse and repetitive movements, and things that athletes in soccer do all the time, like sprinting, cutting, kicking, and twisting, all cause chronic inflammation, which it can be extremely painful with this injury. And this injury does not come on quickly. It's more like wear and tear that slowly builds up, and if you don't take care of it, symptoms like tightness in your groin, pain when you lift up your leg, and stiffness after sitting for a while will appear. I picked this topic because my client, Hannah Fischbacher, developed early signs of FAI from excessive running and soccer. She practices 5 times a week for 2 hours a day and goes for extra runs on her own for fun. But over time, the repetition and overuse led to impingement and pain in her hip. She started noticing groin pain and her range of motion dropped. Eventually, she got diagnosed with what is called FAI, and that is what my injury prevention program is on. FAI seems like something trivial, but it really can turn into a much bigger issue. The constant pinching in the joint can cause a labral tear, which is damage to the cartilage ring around your hip socket. And once that happens, it can lead to chronic pain and early arthritis. And this can be extremely painful and extremely damaging to your hip if not taken care of properly. FAI is preventable, but only if you take care of it early on and take care of your body. For the pretest, the progression of FAI can turn into much bigger injuries, and you need to take care of your body or else it's just going to keep on getting worse and worse. For the pretest, I did hip range of motion, how tight her hip was, her pain levels, and how many single leg squats she was able to do. Her scores did improve slightly, but I put her test scores at the end and compared them with her post-test scores. For my program to prevent FAI, the goal was to build mobility, flexibility, and strength around her hips and glutes. I wanted her body to move more smoothly and evenly and not be pinched and rubbed weird, which would cause more inflammation. For her dynamic warm-up, it was vital for her to be able to perform and get her muscles warm through this warm-up. So we really focused on her hips. We did hip circles, 2 sets of 10 on each side, and then walking lunges, 2 sets of 10, and then lateral band walks, which was 3 sets of 10. These get the blood flowing and wake up her glutes, which is super important for stabilizing her hips. And then for mobility and stretching, I filmed a few videos of these ones, but I didn't do the rest of them. She did 90 to 90 hip stretch. We did this in a very tight hotel room, so there wasn't enough room for her to go back and forth, but usually you'd want to keep your hips on the ground at all times. And then we also did pigeon pose, which is this one over here, and then we did the hip flexor stretch, or you can also call it the chair stretch or something. But these stretches helped loosen the muscles that tend to get tight from all the running and kicking we do. And when those muscles are tight, they pull on the hip joint, which just makes the problem worse. For strengthening, I did glute bridges, 3 sets of 15, clamshells with a band, 3 sets of 12, and Copenhagen planks, which are 3 sets of 10 per side. These target your glutes, core, and hip stabilizers, which are all muscles that protect the joint from overworking. We also did a cool down routine after the workouts for her recovery, which was just walking to make sure her muscles are loose, and then gentle hip mobility, like small circles and slow stretches. For the post-test assessment, she was consistent and her results improved. She felt more balanced and stronger overall, and that's the best sign that her hips are getting healthier. But for the hip range of motion one, her flexion increased from 95 degrees to 115, which is a 20-degree increase. Her internal rotation increased 10 degrees, and her external rotation also increased 10 degrees. For her pain levels, she went from a 6 out of 10 while running to a 2 out of 10. And then for kicking, she went from a 7 out of 10 to a 1 out of 10. For her hip flexors tightness, it went from 15 degrees to 5 degrees. And then she was able to run pain-free most of the time. And for her single leg squat test, she was able to do 25 before, and then it improved to 27. After my program, I want her to continue to do mobility and stability work just so her injury does not come back and return worse. So I want her to continue to keep on doing my program and keep her hips loose after my program was done. And for the key takeaways from this presentation was it's mostly caused by repetitive movement, overuse, and lack of recovery. The key to keeping this injury minimal is to stay consistent with mobility and strength work and not just stretching once in a while. And if her hip ever feels tightness or pain, I don't want her to ignore it, and I want her to take action before it turns into something worse. Thank you.